saying it's a majority.
Censor a doctor's expert opinion.
That was it. Live, raw, and unfiltered. It appears that China spy balloon has now been shot down.
We're getting into a racial dictatorship here.
During President Biden's State of the Union speech, he got booed when he accused Republicans of seeking to sunset some of the so-called entitlements.
The credit of the United States of America will never, ever be questioned. Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks,
it is certainly true that President George W. Bush proposed allowing workers to devote a portion of their Social Security contribution to a private account to invest in the stock market in pursuit of a higher rate of return. Now, the report from the Bush Commission on Social Security read, Social Security will be strengthened if modernized to include a system of voluntary personal accounts. Personal accounts improve retirement security by facilitating wealth creation and providing participants with assets that they own and that can be inherited, rather than providing only claims to benefits that remain subject to political negotiation, end of quote. But get this, it is also true that Bush abandoned the plan after Democrats denounced it as a risky scheme to privatize Social Security. It is also equally true, however, that both Democrat presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton called Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without reform unsustainable. Their word, not mine. In March 2013, Politico wrote, Obama also warned that Democrats need to embrace at least some changes to unsustainable entitlement programs in order to achieve their long-term priorities, end of quote. Obama set up a bipartisan deficit commission that made several recommendations. When it issued its final report, ABC News wrote, the president has tasked commission co-chairman Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson with devising a plan to reduce the deficits and redirect the country from its, wait for it, unsustainable fiscal path. The end result is a wide-ranging and controversial report that its supporters touted as a good start to a tough problem. To dig the country out of debt, it wrote, the plan put forth by the panel today calls for drastic changes such as raising the Social Security retirement age, making cuts to Medicare, and doubling the federal gas tax, end of quote. As for President Clinton, he too set up a bipartisan commission to tackle the entitlements problem. The federal government Social Security website wrote the following. On November 5, 1993, President Bill Clinton, by Executive Order 12878, created the Bipartisan Commission on Entitlement Reform. The commission, which began its work in February 1994, goal was to devise a package of proposals which would reduce the overall cost of these programs. The two co-chairs of the commission developed their own Social Security proposal, which featured raising the retirement age to 70, a cut in the Social Security payroll tax, with the money redirected into mandatory private accounts, and adopting price indexing, among other changes. This was perhaps the first advocacy of carve-out private accounts and of price indexing by a prominent mainstream group, end of quote. Wow, 2 Democrats monkeying around with Social Security? Were these Democrats seeking to use Biden's characterization to sunset these programs? You see, the federal budget devotes about half of its spending to these so-called entitlement programs: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and now Obamacare. And then there is income security, which includes general retirement and disability insurance, federal employee retirement, disability, and military retirement, unemployment compensation, housing assistance, nutrition assistance, foster care, supplemental security income, and the earned income and child tax credits. Throw in national security and interest on the debt, and this leaves almost nothing left. So after conceding these programs without reform are unsustainable, both parties now attack any reform as risky and irresponsible. That's politics. Meanwhile, the clock keeps on ticking on Social Security and on Medicare, and that's the elder statement. Got a question for you. Are you concerned with stock market volatility?
Markets closing in on their worst year since the financial crisis.
Since 2020, the Dow closed down more than 1,100 points.
Financial markets had their worst day since the start of the pandemic.
Do you really trust this economy?
The U.S. economy could be headed for a recession.
Tonight, the alarming spike in inflation soaring to its highest level in nearly 40 years.
What if you can invest in a portfolio with a high fixed rate of return that's not correlated to the stock market? Well, you can turn your monthly income on or off, compound it, whatever you choose, and get this, there is no loss of principal if you need your money back, and absolutely no fees. Just log on to investyrefy.com. Folks, I personally invest with my own money with YRefy. So log on to investyrefy.com or call 888-YRefy24. That's 888-YRefy24. Finally, a few thoughts. Republican South Carolina Rep. Nancy Mace pressed former Twitter executives on the company's censorship policies during the House Oversight Committee hearing on Twitter's role in suppressing the voices of reputable doctors on a response to COVID. I got a feeling these Twitter executives probably wish they had taken the day off.
Why do you think you or anyone else at Twitter had the medical expertise to censor a doctor's expert opinion?
Our policies regarding COVID were designed to protect individuals. We were seeing...
You guys censored Harvard-educated doctors, Stanford-educated doctors, doctors that are educated in the best places in the world, and you silenced those voices. I have another tweet by someone with a following of a full 18,000 followers. This person put a chart from the CDC on Twitter. It's the CDC's own data, so it's accurate by your standards. And you all labeled this as misleading. What makes you think you or anyone else at Twitter have the medical expertise to censor actual, accurate CDC data?
Not familiar with these particular situations.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not. But this is what Twitter did. They labeled this as inaccurate. It is the government's own data.
Now, did you hear about the kiss that Kamala Harris's husband gave Dr. Jill Biden?
The vice president was asked about the scene during an interview on Telemundo. She said this.
Bueno, yo no he visto el video. No sé, pero yo sé que la primera dama y el segundo caballero están trabajando arduamente con lo que estamos haciendo con mi esposo contra el antisemitismo. Es muy importante.
Now, notice how fleeting it was. Let's watch this again.
The vice president was asked about the scene during an interview on Telemundo.
And as far as I'm concerned, it was a nothing burger. But look at the bizarre response Harris gave to Spanish language television when she was asked about it.
Bueno, yo no he visto el video. No sé, pero yo sé que la primera dama y el segundo caballero están trabajando arduamente con lo que estamos haciendo con mi esposo contra el antisemitismo. Es muy importante.
What was all that about? How about I didn't see it, no big deal? Who else worries that President Biden, to demonstrate his toughness, might overreact? No, Mr. President, that's not a Chinese spy balloon. That's a Goodyear blimp. Don't shoot it down. And who's afraid that Biden, to demonstrate his toughness, will fail to distinguish between Japan in China. Mr. President, it's the Fuji film blimp. Don't shoot it down. It's not a Chinese spy balloon. Now, if you are a liberal, consider this a public service announcement.
Hey, shh. It's okay. It's okay. Take a deep breath. You had a surgery. You've been under anesthesia, but you're okay. We're gonna get you out of here.
What's going on?
Well, you had an event, and we had to operate, but you're gonna be okay.
Why is my rear end killing me?
We had to perform an emergency intracranial rectal removal, and the worst part is, this has been happening a lot. This is the second time you've been in the hospital because your head has been up your ass. I need to ask you something. Are you a Democrat?
Yeah, of course I am. Absolutely.
Okay.
I was in the union about 20 years ago.
Okay. Oh, slow down. We don't want that head to go back up there. All right? This happens a lot with liberals. Your beliefs and the way you vote affects the way your head relates with your and it'll just go right up there and it'll block reality.
But we gotta be loyal and no matter what.
Whoa, shush. It'll happen right as I'm sitting here. It's not pleasant to watch. So I want you to take a look at this. That is the Constitution. Now look at it, read it, and that's going to affect the way you see the world. Welcome aboard. I'm also going to write you a prescription for a couple of old Ronald Reagan speeches.
Finally, a word from conservative writer and speechwriter for Presidents Nixon and Ford and part-time actor and game show host Ben Stein.
Hello, friends. You know what occurs to me, and it's a kind of scary thought. We're getting into a racial dictatorship here where you simply cannot speak your mind, even at the most obvious things that differences between the races and among the races without losing your job, your friends, your house. That's a racial dictatorship. We've never had that here before. God bless you.
Now hit that like button, hit subscribe, and then scroll down a little bit. You'll see where you can become a member of our mailing list. Because every now and then, for reasons I find confusing, YouTube doesn't like our videos. If you want to make sure you see all of our vids, get on our mailing list. That way you don't miss a thing. And also, you see that round donate button? Hit that. Throw a little something in the tip jar to make sure we keep giving you great programming. Remember, LarryWithEpoch.com, LarryWithEpoch.com. I'm Larry Elder, and this has been the Larry Elder Show for Epoch Times. Remember, we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.